My name is Irene Kerrigan. I am here to tell my personal story of my family and my husband suffering from post-traumatic stress, and that I served over 25 years in the security forces.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed for having us here this afternoon. Inconspicuous Gallantry, the title, which may seem a bit strange, was chosen because in 2006 the UDR was awarded the Conspicuous Gallantry Cross as a decoration for its services during the Troubles. It's easy to see what soldiers do. They put on uniforms and go out into the street. What you don't tend to see is what happens behind those uniforms, what happens around the kitchen sinks and the dining room tables of those people whenever they go home or whenever events impact upon them. So that was very important. That was a very important aspect. That was the real reason for doing the show, to show how the service and the sacrifice which was given by the UDR to Northern Ireland over the years of the Troubles impacted on people personally. Met with people from the UDR, families, friends, former members over a period of a couple of years, and the show was what we ended up with. There are 5 scenes and 6 moments in the full show, which is followed by a facilitated discussion. We ran that out thanks to Doors Understanding, Healing and Peace in Strabane District Council a week or 2 ago, and then the North and West Tyrone area. We've been invited to bring it here today to show that. So it's important to show, we feel, what's going on behind that, what the pressures and the impacts and the strains and the stresses were on those people. Do not look for links between the scenes. There are 2 scenes here. Orlin Connell will perform the first one, then there'll just be a brief pause, and then Jim will perform the second one. I hope you find them beneficial. It's hard to say, well, it'll be hard to say when you've seen them that they're enjoyable, but hopefully they'll illuminate the situation and the issues for you. So thank you very much indeed for having us.
What's wrong?
Oh, nothing. Nothing, I'm grand.
Just a rough old day?
Aye, rough old day. Anyway, best forgotten about.
Put it behind you. You're home now.
Aye. Home. Whatever that means anymore. Anyway, how was your day?
Huh?
I said, how was your day?
Same as usual now, I suppose. To be honest, these spuds are the most interesting thing I've had to do all day.
I thought you were with the doctor.
The doctor? I've forgotten about that.
Well?
Well, what?
Well, what did he say about your leg?
The shrapnel hasn't moved. So he thinks it could be lodged down there for good. They'd hoped that it might have moved and that they might have been able to get at it. But it doesn't look like it's going anywhere.
Well, what does that mean?
Well, there's no infection, so there's no danger. But there's no chance of surgery. Just keep taking the tablets. What? You're not going to love me anymore because I got a gammy leg? Here, that was me that was going to help you, know. That's me, it's useless and not fit for anything lying about the house. Here, what's wrong with you?
Nothing, all right? Nothing. It's got nothing to do with you.
Well, what is it then? Tell me.
Look, it's just something that happened at work today.
What was it?
I don't really want to say.
I don't really see that you got much choice, Mabel.
I was down in Strabane police station this morning.
And?
And? Guess who they had in for questioning?
Oh. What was he in for? Was it about me?
No, Thomas! You know they're not going to get him for that. I mean, the police have told you that unless somebody more or less confesses it, they're never going to get anybody for that.
Sorry. Sorry for getting annoyed about the boy that blew me up.
Oh, stop being so childish, Thomas.
Sorry. Sorry for grabbing at you. Are you alright?
I'm fine. Look, I'm fine. Anyway, what's for tea?
Spuds and the
Usual.
the usual. Sorry, I don't seem to be improving much.
Give it time.
Well, I seem to have plenty of that. Are you going to tell me?
He was coming out of the police station when I saw him. He saw me. And he shouts over to me, "Hello there, Mrs. Kincaid." And I'll sneer in his face. Tell Thomas I was asking for him.
Come on now. Come on. Don't be letting yourself get upset. Come on now, Mabel. Don't be letting
Oh,
yourself
how can you say that? You can't even go into the town without them cat calling and you hooing at you.
I can't go into town.
Oh, really? Really, Thomas? You tell me, when was the last time you were in the town? I'm sorry, Thomas. I didn't mean to upset you.
But you're right, Mabel. I am frightened of getting into town. I was always aware before. I was going into town that people would spot me. But so you know yourself, whenever you're patrolling only a couple of miles from my house, it doesn't take long before some of the people, all the people, find out you're in the regiment. But before, whenever I went down to town, I was always checking. I'm sure you could always take to your heels and skedaddle if need be. Not done anymore. Can't move too quick now. Now with a limp, sure it'd be too easy to spot. I'd be like a sitting duck.
You're like a prisoner in your own home.
The choices you make, eh? The choices you make. But don't let them grind you down, love. Don't let them grind you down.
I can't sleep. I'm not at night anyway. Well, that's when they come for you, you know. At night. When they think your guard is down. When there are shadows for them to hide in. Shadow men. Their faces covered with black balaclavas so they blend into the darkness. Shadow men. That's where you'll find them. In the dark corners where the light doesn't get in. Where nobody can see what they're up to. God would scream if he could see it. Alexander's anniversary. I took a walk through the graveyard today. There are 17 on there. 17 with connections to the regiment. 17 who were taken too early. It's hard to think that such a small piece of ground could hold so much tragedy. I remember the night that Alexander was murdered. He was about 20 yards ahead of me on the road. And then he wasn't. But they planted a bomb in a ditch. And I suppose they knew that sooner or later somebody would be walking past. Well, we patrolled that part of the road fairly regular. That didn't matter to them who they got. Single man running a farm maybe. Young fella just starting out in life. A married man with a couple of wains. That's what Alexander was. A young fella. 2 wee boys, both under 4, and a wife at home. He was only 23. Just a Wayne himself, starting out. It was a remote control bomb. There must have been somebody lying, watching. I wonder how long that boy had lain there, waiting. It had rained that afternoon, and I remember thinking, that boy must be soaking, lying there just waiting for some random uniform to walk past so he can press his button. Click. Such a small action. Boom. After we got up, I couldn't hear. Well, my ears were ringing. And I remember swinging around, looking to see if somebody was coming on to attack us. It's all over in seconds. No warning. I couldn't see Alexander. So I started running up the road to his position. You see, he was the lead man in our patrol. I couldn't find him. I found him in a field, about 30 yards from where I'd been walking on the other side of the road. He's just lying there, looking up at the sky. There wasn't a mark on his face. I called him. And then the other boys had found him. Well, they came rushing up and we decided to get him onto the road for the ambulance coming. I put my hands underneath him. They lifted him up and blood. My hands were covered with blood. Everywhere you looked was blood. His back had been shredded. Well, we couldn't move him. My wee brother, blown up by a remote control explosion. He was the lead man in our patrol, you see. It was supposed to be me. I was supposed to be the lead man. I had to go back and tell my father and my mother that Alexander was... I told them it should have been me. I'm sorry, Mother. It's all my fault. By men on a hill, hiding in the shadows. Shadow men. They wouldn't come down to fight you face to face. That road's only 4 miles from this house. And I haven't been on it for 25 years. Not since the night that Alexander was killed. I can't sleep. Not at night. It's when they come for you, you know. At night. When you think your guard is down. When there are shadows for them to hide on.
Maybe we just take a wee moment and maybe talk quietly to the person beside you before we go on to Irene. So just take a wee moment in reaction to what you've just seen.
We're not just behind the table. Where's that bottle of brandy you have in the house? Right,
Okay, so let me, on behalf of Towards Understanding and Healing, Eamon Baker's my name, thank you for being here. In terms of the work of Towards Understanding and Healing, we think this is a very important moment. We really are delighted that Irene is here. We're delighted that Anne is here, and Derek and Sylvia are here. And we're delighted you're here. And this could not have happened without work that was done with Tyrone, Derry Donegal Action. That's where some of this work started. And work that Maureen has done and Jim Arbuckle, who are both here, have done that led to the gathering of the stories, that led to Jonathan being able to create the drama, two scenes of which you've just seen. So Jonathan, many thanks to you, many thanks to the actors. As some of you know, Irene is unaccustomed to public speaking and has come here rather nervously. Me and her were over drinking brandy in a nearby hostelry. She nearly dropped me onto the table. So what we hope is, as you listen, because Irene's going to tell you her story now, that you listen with the greatest of respect. What we anticipate you doing is saying how this story has affected you. We're not inviting a discussion about the rights and wrongs of the UDR. We're listening to a personal truth, a personal testimony. And I am very grateful that you have come along here to do this, Irene. And I remember I used to do rock climbing, and the guy who coached me said, if I was as nervous rock climbing as you, I wouldn't do it. So in a sense, you know, you're risking being here, and I appreciate it. I think we all will. So over to you, Irene Kerrigan.
My name is Irene Kerrigan. I was one of a Protestant family of 9. I was reared outside Dromore in County Tyrone. We had a lot of good Catholic neighbours when we were growing up, and I went to Roman Catholic primary school for the first 4 years of my life. Why we moved out of it, I don't understand or remember why. Obviously it's because of the troubles. I believe were probably getting really rough at that stage, and we were moved probably for religious reasons or whatever. I always wanted to join the RUC, but that didn't happen. I went and did an interview and all, but there were so many people joining the RUC in the early 80s that it just was impossible. So then I applied to join the UDR, which was very much against my mother and father's wishes. I was following the footsteps of my older brother, so I thought that was okay. I didn't want to be like my other sisters ending up in the local factories. A younger brother of mine then also joined the UDR in later years. Prior to this, I really never took much interest in the Troubles because you know, there was people being killed, but when you didn't know them, it really never had an impact on you. And on out in UDR patrols, I mean, I never disrespected anyone, but people spat and swore at us. There was people who wouldn't open the windows of the car to speak to us, you know, and it was sometimes a bit hard going. And then people you knew, you were out on patrol with people and they were being murdered. And you were probably more conscious, you know, you thought this could happen to me. And you were going to wakes and you were going to the funerals and, you know, you're thinking, you could see the pain that these families were suffering and the heartache and the questions why and how, but there was nothing you could do about it. And during this time I met and married my husband from Castlederg, who was happy, outgoing, never seemed to worry or care in the world. And then in March 1984, tragedy struck the Kerrigan family. David's sister's husband was blown up in an under-vehicle booby trap. He was a part-time member of the UDR. Their youngest child was 3 months old, and which meant she was left with 2 young daughters. And after that, she left. She was living in a housing estate, which obviously some of her neighbours had obviously targeted them and set them up. So she left there and moved back home to the family home. Then later that year, in July 1984, David, a brother of his and his younger 20-year-old sister was all out on patrol, and our landmine explosion went off, and Heather was seriously injured and David was injured as well. And the helicopter dropped them off, came back and took them to the hospital. And on the way, Heather was bleeding so heavily that the blood was running out of the helicopter under David, you know, out to the door. And I actually listened to a tape where David had been attending a psychologist in later years, and they were talking about the colour of the floor in the helicopter, and the psychologist said, David, what colour was the floor? And David said red, you know, because his sister was bleeding to death. And another colleague of theirs was killed in the same explosion. They couldn't find him. Norman was blew to pieces when the helicopter came back for David and Heather, so they had to just go on and leave Norman. And where the explosion happened, we never went to the Corgrees until the 25th anniversary. And we left poppies, and we wouldn't have been away 5 minutes when somebody come and tore them poppies down. Like, you know, why they just can't leave them alone, we'll never understand. And we've come back a few other times on different occasions, and they've always took the poppies down. You know, they just come along, cut the poppies off and just throw them on the ground. David was off sick after the bomb for 6 months, and he returned to UDR duties, but just there were so many painful memories. You know, people were saying about things, you know, and he just left UDR and joined the RUC Reserve. And oddly enough, his best friend in the police was a Roman Catholic. I was in the UDR and I stayed on, later becoming the Royal Irish Regiment, and with both of us in the security forces, we were always very vigilant, you know, of what were the dangers of, and we lived a few miles from the border outside Castlederg, and many a night you get a phone call in the middle of the night saying check your car in the morning or go a different route to work. And we had sensors on our house, and you know, even if a leaf blew past then the sensors went off, which meant you were up listening and looking out the blinds to see if there was anything there. And our children was always brought up, you know, you tell your people don't lie, but you know, we were always saying our children, don't tell anybody what your mommy and daddy work at, even though they were probably aware even when they were asking the children. And you were advised never to hang your uniform outside to dry it, and you never lit the lights in your house until you closed the curtains at night. And life was very hard because you could have been working, you're on duty the night with someone and they could have been murdered that night, going home from duty, or maybe the next day. And in 1998, David's health really took a turn for the worst. It was shortly after the Omagh bomb. you know, it must have been just something that triggered it, or I don't know what. And he would now suffer from chronic post-traumatic stress. But looking back on it, he probably had suffered with it prior to that, for he'd have come off duty and he'd went to the pub and come home full drunk. But I just thought that was just part of the job, you know. And he'd been in a few incidents while he was in the police. In fact, there was a UDR man blowing up, and David and another policeman was the first two people there, and they lifted him. David knew the fella, and they lifted him out of the car, and he'd lost his legs, but his bits of his trousers were still there, and as they were carrying him to the ambulance, David had sort of folded his trousers back, you know, sort of and that was one of the things, and his ongoing health. And you know, like, he wasn't the man like we'd got married, like, I mean, he didn't, you know, he was happy in holidays, and then he was sort of, now he would blame himself for the death of his Heather, you know, and he always thinks if he hadn't been in charge of that UDR patrol, Norman and Heather wouldn't have been there. And you know, it's all the guilt, and you know, he probably feels responsible to his mother that, you know, he was the one joined the UDR, and then the younger ones came behind him and they joined. And I feel as a wife and our three sons have not had a really easy life with David, because he had mood swings, and you know these things could be going really well, and then all of a sudden you have this bad tempered outburst, and then other times you have these long periods of silence, and you have threats where he'd say, well, when you go to your work today, I mightn't be here when you come back. And you're thinking, well, how do you do I stay at home or do I go on? In cases like that, I would just make an excuse and I'd ring him to make sure that things is going all right. And then other times he would spend a lot of time in bed. And we have a farm now, and him and the boys would be up working on the farm, and you'd hear somebody coming pounding in the back hall, and it's normally David now, because the boys are big enough to stand up to him, and he just heads off to his bed. He just can't hack this stress at all, and he always complains about a pain in his head, which I can't understand really what it's about. And he suffers from this tiredness, and he has no interest in living. So we as a family would hardly ever go out socialising. And I think people tend to forget that we as a family living with someone with post-traumatic stress is probably just as hard. You know, you see people who have lost limbs, and you know, you think it's awful, but I think a mental illness is probably nearly worse, because people don't see. You think, you know, oh, you look all right. You know, you heard of the street angel and house devil, like, you know, I mean, people put on this show when they're out, you know, all happy-go-lucky, and then, you know, when they're in the house, it's a completely different thing. And you know, when I tell people David suffers from stress, they're actually very surprised, because they think he couldn't, you know, because he doesn't look, you know, when he's out, like, he's put on this great face. And you know, it's been a real life sentence for the whole family. Looking back, I wonder what life would have been like if we hadn't been both in the security forces and our lives hadn't been ruined by these terrorists. Yeah. And you know, because I always feel I'm living in Heather's shadow, you know, because David always says Heather would be this and Heather would be this, and we have photographs up of her in our house, like, you know, and we go to David's mother's, and the house practically covered with photographs of Heather. And you know, then in 2013, I became a member of the Victims and Survivors Forum, where I sit with people from Republican backgrounds, and you hear their stories, and you know, you think sometimes, where are we going from here? And I don't really know if the forum has probably given me a lot more confidence and actually put me in rooms with people that I probably have never been in with. And then I think of the OTR letters and how David felt when he heard that, you know, because he felt that was just a total betrayal of people like us, you know, letting people off. And, you know, it always seems to be very one-sided, and, you know, all these big inquiries seem to be against, as they call, the state forces, which to me is wrong. And to me, I always said, you know, when I wrote my review to Lady Hallett, I wrote, an OTR letter would never relieve David of the horror which is inflicted by him, by the people who terrorised the country for 40 years. And I also believe that nationalists are trying to rewrite history, trying to make it look like the security forces did all the killing, when in reality the IRA killed over 3,000 people. And even in this so-called ceasefire period, you know, if I met somebody, I would be still very wary. I think it's probably ingrained in me because I was in the security forces, you know, to be on the vigilant of people. But the fact is, I am not ashamed that I joined the security forces, because at the end of the day, it gave us a very good start in life. And that's all I can say, and thanks for listening.
So I very much appreciate, I'm thinking the brandy did help. So the invitation now is with the deepest of respect to respond to the truth, the testimony that you've just heard. And I should have said, Brenda, we're very grateful that you could. Brenda's changed her schedule to be here, and Dean Morton also has changed his schedule to be here, so we very much appreciate that.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming to share this with us. And I haven't heard this perspective yet, and we're about to leave the country. So the fact that we get to hear this, especially from you, and it's told very well. And so I just wanted to thank you so much.
Thank you.
So how long have you been here?
About 3 months. All 5 of us. So about 3 months or so, and we're going to leave in mid-December. Yeah, mid-December. So.
You haven't heard this perspective?
No, not yet. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, from the service background, you've eloquently told it with passion. How people with guilt, even though they haven't got guilt, they did their duty. The guilt is that they're alive and everyone else is dead.
That's true.
And also from the perspective is that how you performed your duties even with the stress of knowing to be injured or killed, either on duty or off duty.
Thank you, Mark. Sarah, this is Sarah. Mark.
I found that very emotional. But also, you spoke about you've made a choice, and in some way it was a financial choice for a better life.
Yeah.
You have 3 children. How are they? Like, what ages are they?
Well, they're growing up now. The eldest boy is 29, and the second boy is 23, and the younger boy is 17. But they would definitely be affected, I think, you know, with them, because they'd have very short moods, you know, temper spans as well. But I mean, they've lived with it all their life. And, you know, I find when they get to the age that go on the drinking, they'll just go on a bender. But David would have done that as well, you know, and then he scowls about the boys now, you know. But I think it definitely did have a big effect.
I'm sure it did.
You know. And my younger son, you know, if things were going bad and me and David was having an argument, and, you know, Adam would say, oh, let it go, Irene, rather than start a row, you know, with David, because he knows the impact it has, you know, and he knows David will just storm off and go to bed anyway, or sit there quiet, which is probably worse sometimes, you know.
I really appreciate your honesty, you know, because that takes great guts to sit there and even say that, you know. Thank you.
Brenda, can I just ask how your husband feels about your work with the victims and does he support of that, or does he resent you talking to people from, you know, the other side and the other
This is Lynn McIntosh.
At the start, when I went on the victims forum, I never, you know, I mean, there was all these people here, but, you know, and they were just a name at the start. And I was driving into work one morning, and Stephen Nolan came on, and he said Evelyn Glyn Holmes was the most wanted IRA woman in Britain. And I swear to God, if somebody had given me a kick in the stomach, it couldn't have a bigger effect on me. I never knew she was an IRA woman when I went on the forum. And I phoned one of the commissioners and I said, why was I not told? He said, why did you not Google her? You know, that's what he said. You know. But Evelyn Holmes makes no secret of it, because we were talking about black taxis one day, and I said, oh, black taxis. I mean, it's just a thing, because when I think of black taxis, I think of the 2 soldiers that was murdered in Belfast. I know it's probably a weird thing, but that's what, when I relate to black taxis, I think of them 2 soldiers that was threw over the gates at Casement Park. You know, but I don't think Evelyn could actually relate to that. It's just completely different, because it obviously come from completely different divides. But well, sometimes he says, what are they doing? What are they achieving? The victim survivors forum, and sometimes I wonder that myself. But you know, but it's all political. It's a political football, really. You know, we would say things, but politicians make the decisions in the end, I think.
But does it help you hearing the
Yes,
it does help
yeah, because you hear, like, I mean, I would be very much aware there's 2 sides to the whole troubles and the whole thing, but it's good sometimes because you learn things, and you know people aren't as bad sometimes as you thought they were, if you know what I mean.
Thank you, Lynn. Yes, Susan?
Irene, do you see any light at the end of the tunnel? Your family life is obviously ruled, it seems, by post-traumatic stress disorder. Do you see any end to that, or have you just resigned yourself to
No.
that that's just the way it is?
I've just resigned myself. The day I think I'll see the end of that is the day we're putting the lid on David's coffin. And that's the truth.
Yeah, I'm very
Because he's been to so many people, you know, people say he goes to he's been to motorcycle, he's been CBT, and he's done EMDR and all these things are supposed to help you, but no, I think the day the lid goes on the coffin.
But I could say in relation to that, I'm David.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I'm the person who's in Middle Springs, and the family took to Ryan.
Yeah.
And I know this is going on, but to hear it come from you, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are, but for you to help you go through that, I think it's something unfair. But because out of love, that's the reason why you're doing it. And it's the same thing for my family and children. My father was born up in 74 by the IRA. So I identified the body and did everything you had to do. And so over those stages from 74 to this year, the anniversary was the 11th of January, was the 40th anniversary. I decided to draw a line under it, because there's no sense in me going around hating people and talking about neighbours and thinking of neighbours and who could have planted this bomb and why did they plant the bomb, and you're passing people in the street and they were IRA and every organisation that was going. And the difference that came to me was I'm eating myself up about these people, but they're not eating themselves up regardless of what they've done, because at that time they believe what they've done was right. That's for them to judge the stuff for me. We to judge. So regards EPT and EMDR and going to see this one and that one, I've been to them all, fortune tellers and all that. But out of despair you'll go anywhere.
That's right.
Just to
You'll try anything.
Like if someone says, if you go up and walk around the day walls 10 times, it'll help you. I'll do it. But it's getting to that stage to try and do it. How is it for David? Has David thrown the towel in?
He has. He's given up. Well, he is practical. We think we've tried everything, really.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't think there's. I mean, people say, "Oh, you're bound to snap out of it," but I can't ever see
At
it.
the same time, from David's point of view, but from my own point of view, this is not intentional. What David does is not intentional.
No.
You know, he doesn't wake up in the morning saying, I'm depressed.
That's right.
Or I'm suffering post-traumatic stress. You know, it happens, and it's just like switching the light on. As you say, if you break your arm, somebody can see you broke your arm. If you're depressed, affected one or the other, they don't see that. All they see is a smiling face, a happy family. They don't know what's going on with the side. You know, but all I can say is don't give up hope.
Thank you.
She's always smiling.
Well, yeah.
You never know. I only begin to realise we've been friends for a long time, but and I've worked with her as a colleague, I'm only realising now what she actually is going through at home because of post-traumatic stress.
See, the thing is, you keep it to yourself because you don't want people to know, first of all.
That's right.
You feel embarrassed.
That's right.
And then people don't understand what post-traumatic stress is. And then it's getting recognised more now that it is an illness, but it's an illness, and there's a cure out there which will come quick, you know. But all you can do is you say, just keep trying whatever comes. And whatever assistance is out there yourself, you also need support. I don't know where you go or
No, go anywhere.
well, to be honest with you, for your own sanity, you should. I'm not
I'm
not telling you what to do, but I'm making a suggestion to you that sometimes
She's the backbone of the family.
at the same time you can't suck, you just keep sucking like a sponge all the time. You know, you need that bit of relief.
One of the things that's extraordinary here, as I sit here, is, I mean, I know what my family life is like. I know where there's been deep pain, and some of that pain I've caused. But Irene has come in here and almost just opened the book. Irene has come in here and just opened the book on her life to all of you, to all of us. And I'm thinking, I really appreciate that you've done that. So Charlie, this is Charlie.
My name is Charlie McMahon. I'm not going to go over in detail about myself, but I can tell you I'm from a Republican background. I live in the Broadside. And the way Eamon said, you've opened the book. My heart's open to your story, and I'm glad I've heard your story, and I'd like to acknowledge it.
Thank you.
That's lovely to hear, Aileen.
Thank you,
Somebody
Charlie.
from the completely opposite.
So my heart is open to your story, and I'm open to hearing. Thank you. Seamus.
Yeah. I'm thinking that it is more than recent visitors, American students, that have not heard this story. Irene, in opening the book, in telling us about David, about Heather, about the transgenerational, about your children, and about the long term. You are telling the entire... We are hearing about a crime against humanity. It implicates all of us human beings. What you have opened up for us is what needs to be known. And just thank you for opening it up.
Thank you, Seamus.
I would just like to say I don't think you can ever underestimate the power of a personal truth like that.
Well, I think
whatever
that too. If you're
perspective
telling the
it
truth,
comes.
you know, you have no fear.
Thank you.
How, sorry, I don't know your name.
Wendy Buchanan.
Wendy, how are you listening? I know that Sarah spoke about being emotional. How have you heard this impact on you, the drama and then Irene?
Quite overwhelming, both. The drama, yes, but it was drama, and I feel I can't comment on that. Even though they were true stories, I feel it's not right to comment on that. With Irene sitting there having just bared her soul and her family's life to all of us. But I find it really, really powerful. And yes, it is a perspective that is maybe not heard or very, very rarely heard, and by very few. There are few of us who get to the kind of age that I am without having been touched in Northern Ireland in some way by the Troubles, but still to get that really deeper insight into the family and the generation and the children and, you know, and the duration, you know, and that's likely to be around in your family beyond your life and your husband's life and into your children's lives and possibly their grandchildren, your grandchildren's life.
Thank you. I heard Brenda here say something to you.
I suppose, being honest, I had probably a higher level of anxiety than I normally would have coming into the room today because I didn't know what I was going to hear, Irene. And I have to say, being involved in the Peace 3 programme and some of the programmes that they have run out, I've had the opportunity to listen to other people's stories and learn how to listen properly and acknowledge them and realise, you know, that I would have seen myself as quite a liberal person, would have thought that I had seen both sides of the Troubles coming from the family background that I came from. But I haven't. And I want to thank you, Irene, for giving us the opportunity for hearing your story. and being able to acknowledge that, because we can't take that past away from you. And all we can do is be here to try and make the future somewhat a bit easier. I think we're forming friendships as well as we go forward, but I think Seamus was right. There's a generation of young people out there who are in danger of being sucked in to another cycle of violence, and they need to hear you here. You know, and if there's any way we can assist you in doing that, more than willing to do that. I don't want to see another generation go through what some of us went through, and indeed what your own family went through.
Thank you.
Just like to make another point. We're talking about impact and how deep it went, and you gave your expression about how that's prolonged. It also has an impact not locally, but also of the wider circle.
Can you
my
hear?
father's
No. Mark, people down there can't hear you.
My father's cousin was born in Donegal, and with the father and family went to Scotland to live in the Highland. He joined the British Army in 1973. He was blown up. Now, that was part of my time, and it affected us because came here on him and his brother came here to patrol the streets, and my mother came out to give him a cup of tea, and I was hailing, "Oh, come and meet so-and-so." So I shook his hand, gave him a cup of tea, and all the rest of it. Running on now decades, I had an opportunity when I came back from Uptelling to go and do my family research. So I went up to Scotland, and I found my relations, and I found my great uncle. I couldn't even talk to him. He was in the kitchen, he was moving rapidly around the kitchen. I don't know what it was. And I thought time had healed, and that the subject about his son could be brought up. And Teresa, she went on the phone, she phoned up all the entire family at Dublin to get all the story, and I had to explain to them what it was all about. And I was just doing my family tree, and these are part of my family, and my uncle wouldn't come in, and I wasn't allowed to stay in the vicinity, that I had to go down the road, find a hotel. They hate Ireland. They will not come ever here again. The feeling, the impact was horrendous, and still horrendous. If that's true for what I have seen, God knows what it means to all those thousands who came here and were killed. And that includes not only combatants, that includes Spanish school children who came to Oma, and their family, and their relations, and their friends. And anybody else who came here, either innocent or part of the process of combatant against this, that, and the other, who came far. There was a boss at DuPont who was killed. Going back to North America and all his family, and so on and so forth. It's all affected worldwide, not just the local. And I'm glad you're there to give not only your story, but to show that it's not only local, but global impact as well.
Thank you, Mark. We're going to finish at 2. So it's approximately 5 to 2. So I'm wondering, is there one, maybe 2 other people that want to say something from their heart or from their experience here? Yes, Dennis.
What Seamus and Brenda have just said about not hearing that story before, I think the two communities going back decades and centuries haven't heard each other's story. And I hope going into the future they do. Maybe that's the problem here, that each side has been cocooned in its own mentality and they haven't come together enough.
I think part of the thinking behind the Garden of Reflection, Dennis, has been to invite people from different backgrounds into this room where we might hear each other perspective.
I appreciate that, but it's only a small number of people.
Sure. No,
it's
I'm
got
not,
to go much further out.
I'm not attempting to gainsay what you're saying. I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. Yeah. Joe. This is Joe. Dennis.
One of the things that it just what your testimony confirmed to me, Irene, was something that I've already thought for a very long time, which is that in war and in organized violence, there's never going to be an agreement on the justification or the necessity or specific actions or anything like that. But the one, I guess, commonality to everybody who either, as Mark said, is a part of it or peripherally a part of it is pain, is the body in physical and emotional pain. And I think that that's really what kind of your testimony so eloquently illustrates.
Yeah. John, maybe you might be the last person today. Go ahead. This is John Kelly.
No pressure, thank you. I suppose I'm interested, in making sure this doesn't happen again in the cycle that Brenda alluded to as well, that where we're coming from. You mentioned being on the Victims Commission or the Victims Forum or whatever.
Victims Survivors Forum.
It's called, and the politicalness of it and all of that. Is there any way you and your group can try and be a part of unpoliticising it, or trying to tell politicians to back off it, because it obviously doesn't
No, you
really
can't.
help.
They're the ones that hold the purse strings. They're the purse strings. They hold the purse strings, so at the end of the day.
They hold more than purse strings.
I know that, but
That's the real problem.
Yeah.
They're using the people.
Sorry to bring Derek in here.
I would just like to congratulate you, Irene, on the way you have told her story. As a comrade of yours and your husband, late husband, or your husband, I mean,
Yeah.
Heather.
I know, but I know what you mean.
I'd like to congratulate you on telling the stories. But I think it's important our stories are all told, and told with dignity the way you have done it.
Thank you, dear.
If we don't tell our stories, somebody else has the opportunity to tell the story for us, but in a different angle.
Yeah.
I would just like to congratulate you on the way you have done it.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
But behind the uniform, there's a human being.
Yes, very much so.
And we're not the baddies that went out
That's right.
to,
And I think as well as that, during that time, the early time of the Troubles, if anything happened, there was nobody there to talk to.
That's right, yeah.
If any tragedy happened, that person was out on duty the next day, maybe the next couple of days.
Try to take a couple of drinks and get yourself sorted out and
That's
get
right,
back on duty.
That's what you're told, get yourself sorted out and get back on duty.
That's right.
We find that the UDR men was very reluctant to talk.
That's right.
And I think it's because there's so much pain. And I spoke to one father, and his son was blown up, and he had to go 3 times to the graveyard to bury his son. That is horrendous. The police collected what they could collect. And then after the funeral, he went to the spot and he found a body part. He went to the graveyard and buried it. He went back again, found something else. And usually at a time of an explosion, you look for the birds of the air. They'll tell you where the body parts are. Another man was tied to a gate with barbed wire. A UDR man. He put up a flare. When his comrades went, he was tied to the gate with barbed wire. His throat was cut and he was shot, but still alive, but died later. Another man was captured and he was shot. His body, his private parts were cut off and put in his mouth. That's only some.
Very small
of
sum.
the stories that has to go out. They said that UDR were out to kill, shoot to kill. That is not right. If that was right, there'd be more people killed.
That's right. It's like Irene said, it was to give them a better, a better living, a better way of living, a bit more money than the sort of just your ordinary factories, etc. And from my experience, I found that as well. And a lot of the UDR, they didn't join together their Catholic neighbours or Catholic people. It was far away from it. It was, yes, there might have been some younger ones. Oh, I'm, joining. I'm not joining the paramilitaries, but I'll join the UDR. But no, it was financial, a lot of it, and I know that from my own family. And it did make lives a wee bit.
I would say my best friend was on the camp. The one who, if I had any trouble, I would her. And she's the same as me. And that's been happening all through the rebels.
Myself and Sylvia and Dean Morton and Irene had a chat beforehand. And Irene, can I say this, Irene? Irene was,
I don't even remember what I said.
Irene was declaring that I kicked with the other foot. And we come to the conclusion that at the pearly gates, a forgiving God will welcome all, whatever their background. And our purpose here today in inviting Irene, and we're so grateful you've come, is to hear this story, this unique perspective, or the perspective that I have not heard a lot of, with a view to promoting understanding, promoting healing. And hopefully, as you go away and you reflect on, in this garden of reflection, you reflect, maybe there is a bit of understanding that you didn't have before, and maybe there's some sense, maybe of some healing. I really appreciate you coming here.
Thank you. Thank you for
And
that.
let's give Irene a very honest.
Thank you, Eamon. Just on behalf of the Garden of Reflection, sometimes it's a hard truth to hear, and sometimes we do things here that are not easy to listen to, but it's important that we have the space and we have the opportunity, and it's been a real privilege today, Irene.
Thank you.
You've moved us, and your friend Anne is right,
Yeah.
with a
With
smile
my
on your
right hand.
face. You're an amazing woman, and it's been a real privilege for us to be here. Next week, I'll do my little bit of promotion as well. Joe, actually, a few weeks ago we had Joe here did a session on restorative justice, and he delivered a talk around restorative justice. And because there was so much around that, and I think it's actually fitting just at the end of today so next week we're doing a roundtable, more of a workshop, and Joe is going to workshop some restorative justice ideas, and I think that would be really beneficial. And thinking about what you might take away from today as well, and and there are things that are happening day and daily, and then in the very recent past that that resonate. And I know Joe's going to do a great job, so I really do encourage you, when you get the notification that comes to you weekly, please sign up for that. We would love to have you. We'd love to have a few voices in the room to have that conversation. It only really works when we have the different voices. And that's important that we have that. So that's just my little plug. We're winding up today now, just more or less on time. Thank you, Eamon. I'm going to thank Eamon Baker and Towards Understanding and Healing. More fitting, Towards Understanding and Healing, have been very supportive of the Garden of Reflection, and I just thank you, Eamon, for making the plans and the arrangements for today. It's great, and Thank you. We'll do more. I think we'll do more of this in the future. We'll try and get another session. Yes, and then anybody, because Marjorie, who's not here, will kill me. Make sure you've signed in, please. Oh, sorry, Carol. Please, if you haven't signed in, please do that before you go. And just one more quick thing, sorry, before I know some of you need to leave. Wendy here is doing a tour of the Anne Frank exhibition now. If you have half an hour, 40 minutes to spare, please, Wendy would love to show you around the exhibition. Please stay, and other than that, you're free to go. Thanks very much.